Hello, everyone out there in Radio Land. It is once again that time of the week. Oh, what time of the week is it? Well, it's that time of the week where we dig underneath the headlines. We find out what is actually going on. We sift through all that corporate propaganda and call out the establishment on its BS. We are a local leftist political talk show covering issues at the local, national, and international level. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 FM WIDR. And as always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 FM WIDR Kalamazoo or Western Michigan University. So we've got a lot to talk about on today's show. Just to give you a little bit of a taste, so there's actually some good news coming down the pipeline about housing here in Kalamazoo. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. We're going to talk about the state of a particular white supremacist group and what has been causing their decline. Hint, it rhymes with Fanti Law. Ho ho. We're also going to be breaking down some important things that have gone down at the national level, particularly in regards to marijuana. And some wrap up around, of course, this is our last episode during Pride Month. So we wanted to spend some time digging in to some LGBTQ issues. And we're actually going to kick off with that right about now. Funk Soul Brother, check it out now. No, sir. It's funny because like I'll bounce from like some really serious Marxist analysis about some particular topic to making very cheesy and on the nose references. I guess. I mean, that basically describes my personality to a T. But, I'm sorry. In any case, we're going to go ahead and get started with actually our dear Hoodrat Strategist alumnus, Nora Getz. In her travels, did a very cool interview about kind of rainbow capitalism and the ins and outs of opposing that with a person from New York. So we're going to kind of hop in with that, and we've got a couple other things I wanted to talk about while we're on that track of issues. Want to let you know later on in the show, around 7:30, we're going to be joined by Nelly Fuentes, an organizer with Movimiento Cosecha Kalamazoo. She's going to be talking about their effort to get a driver's license ordinance going on here in the city of Kalamazoo, and how that relates to the larger state campaign to do the same. And, we'll probably talk about a few other issues. Obviously, immigration, ICE, all of that nasty stuff has been coming up in the news a lot lately. And sure, it will be a very good segment for us tonight. But let's go ahead and start off. Again, this is Hoodrat correspondent Nora Getz out in New York City, and this is her interview.
Hello, this is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. My name is Nora Getz, and I'm recording right here from Washington Square Park, speaking to Robert Baez of the Reclaim Pride Coalition in New York City. He is a working on his PhD of sociology at the University of Florida, and as part of his dissertation, he's working on projects to help reclaim Pride back to its roots from the Stonewall riot.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So, Robert, real quick first, do you want to tell me about the Reclaim Pride Coalition and what its angle is?
Yeah. Okay. So the Reclaim Pride Coalition is based in New York City, and we are a group made up of a bunch of different activist groups, which is why it's called the Coalition. And we are working to mount the Queer Liberation March on Sunday, June 30th. And we've been working on this over the last year and plus more. And so within the last few weeks with the march coming up, it's been very exciting to see people's reactions and energy towards what we're doing. And so I look forward to seeing how everything turns out. But essentially, as a coalition, we would like to think about the movement work that's been done, particularly around how Pride is currently set up. So specifically within New York City, the mainstream Pride parade here is Heritage of Pride. And so if you've been to Heritage of Pride recently, that is an extremely corporatized and policed event. And so what we're trying to do within the Reclaim Pride Coalition and the Queer Liberation March is reorient that to become a people's march. So not have something that includes corporations where they wash everything in pink and rainbows and try to sell us stuff, but really think about what our community needs are. And so I think within the coalition, we're really interested in centering the most marginalized within our communities, and to think through what that means and how we can work together to accomplish our goals.
Yeah, that sounds like really important work. I appreciate you doing that, and I wish I could see it in more parts of the country. Hopefully other cities will catch on, and whether this year or next year. Can you talk about what that coalition building looked like? Because the Kalamazoo activist community has done like a little bit of coalition building off and on, but nothing quite to this scale. Do you want to go into detail about what that looks like?
Sure. So the coalition has weekly meetings, general body meetings, every Wednesday at the People's Forum. And I think the People's Forum has been really crucial in making this project succeed in what it is now. The People's Forum is a coffee house, but also exactly what it sounds like, a forum for the general public. And it's a really radical space where people from different movements convene here. And so I think being able to have that space and have people meet there has been really great. So we meet every Wednesday. We have, and anybody is welcome to those meetings. We have different subcommittees within the coalition. Some of that would look like the media committee, logistics committee, we have disability and access committee, so a few different committees where people can sort of get together, think through more specifics as to what they're most interested in, and then we come together at the general meeting to sort of touch base with each other and think about what are we missing, to make general announcements to people, and go from there.
I know that one of your big actions is like a counter Pride March that you're having on the same day as the Pride March promoted by Heritage of Pride. Do you have any other specific actions that you've done in the past or plan to do in order to push back against Heritage?
Yeah. So just a few days ago, though it wasn't a coalition specific event or action, a few days ago there was an event an action at the Trump Tower where activists went in the tower, held signs of people who, names of people who are no longer with us, to sort of honor them, not forget who they are, to remember their names, and they marched up to St. Patrick's Cathedral. Also had a moment there because of the history of that oppressive institution, and then they continued on marching, I believe, to Times Square. Okay. And so because the coalition is interested in working together within those different groups, there have been many different events that we've been at. So, for example, and it's part of the outreach as well. We've attended different pride parades in the different boroughs in New York City to try to get the word out about the march, and sort of continuing with that momentum. And so we're very excited with the response that we've been getting from the general public around thinking through capitalism and thinking through policing and really how to care for each other, and to think about how we want to create community.
Okay, those all sound really great. I should ask, how has your organization been dealing with the police in these actions? Because back in Michigan, there was a few people arrested protesting police presence and brutality in general at the Grand Rapids Pride, and the police in Detroit allowed a group of Nazis to go harass Detroit Pride back there. So how have the police been giving you trouble lately? Do you expect them to more leading up to this march? What's that been looking like?
So recently, the NYPD released a statement or an apology for the Stonewall riots. So for raiding the Stonewall Inn in 1969, which is where
Finally.
where all of this comes from, right? I think it's important to contextualize where pride comes from. So in 1969, for those of you who are not familiar, there's the Stonewall Inn, which was a bar ran by the mafia, but because of that, there was a lot of low-income folks, gender not-conforming folks, queer folks who would convene in this space because of the limited spaces where they were allowed to be. And so that bar was raided by the police, and so the crowd one night decided... So I should probably mention that this was a frequent thing, right? The police would raid frequently, but this one night they decided to push back, and so that's where we get the Stonewall riots from. And so recently the NYPD apologized for doing so. And so we think it's important to also say that I think that apology is a bit of bullshit, right?
It's too little too late is what it is.
Yeah, but I think if they were to say, okay, sorry for doing this, and then completely transform the way in which they police, maybe we could have a conversation about that. But they're still an extremely oppressive institution. And so, for example, most recently, we have Layleen Extravaganza, who was at Rikers Island, who was found dead in her cell, right? A black trans woman. And so you can't apologize for doing that and then still continue to have all of these systemic problems with people, black folks, brown folks, trans people. And so we really are critical around what that looks like. And so as far as the Queer Liberation March, how we've been... Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay, as how we've been negotiating that, because we do want to keep many people safe. We do want to keep many people safe during the march, and we have a team of people within the coalition who have been negotiating with the police to keep people who attend this march safe. And so because Heritage of Pride, the mainstream Pride Parade here, is also on the same day, the police are saying that they're going to have very limited resources to help on our end, or to give for the Liberation March, and so we are not allowing the police to march in our parade, and also very critical of how they're going to be present, and just keeping that in mind.
Yeah, that's a big deal. if they're not going to protect your march anyways, which they historically haven't and aren't protecting queer people, that probably sounds like it's going to be a little beneficial in that way. Like even recently, I don't know if anybody back at home has seen the Netflix documentary The Life and Death of Marsha P. Johnson, but it goes into mostly like a sort of unsolved real-life mystery about how Marsha P. Johnson actually died. It almost certainly wasn't a suicide. And long story short, it was most likely the mafia or somebody chased her off into the pier. They might have attacked her, but she fell off into the Hudson River and got washed up the next day. The NYPD back then, and even to this day, like they know things about this murder that they are intentionally not releasing. If they were really sorry, they'd let us know what's going on here. Now, because of this and because of the violence against trans women of color, and along with the fact that they started the Stonewall riots in the first place, have you been really centering those voices in the Queer Liberation March?
We have, so the coalition includes people from all social positions, if you will, right? We have Black trans folks within the coalition, and I think that has been very generative in thinking through our politics, our stances on particular issues, and having difficult conversations. And, movement work is not easy, and I think coming together and talking through these issues is where we're able to refine and define how we want our Queer Liberation March to look like, and after that. I think it's also important to note that the Queer Liberation March, what we're working on is bigger than the Queer Liberation March. It is, the march is only symbolic of the work that we're trying to do. We're trying to reorient the movement more generally to have people wake up and see that these corporations simply want to capitalize on making money rather than giving resources to people who don't have things. So instead of selling jeans that are like rainbow washed or whatever, how is that helping, for example, Black trans women who are their life expectancy is 35 years old, right? How are we giving food, housing, just general material resources to people? And I think pushing back against that, and having people realize what we can do as a community to support each other in those ways has been important. And so that's something that I think the Heritage of Pride, and I should also note that this is happening all around the world, right? It's not just Heritage of Pride who is super corporatized and heavily policed and includes police in their march. This is something that is happening all around the world. And so we hope that as other groups are doing in other parts of the country and pushing back in other countries, that this begins to become something that people are more familiar with, that the idea that Pride marches should be marches again, centered around people, centered around politics,
not centered around companies.
Right, and Pride has become extremely depoliticized, and it was a political event back in 1970 with the Christopher Street Liberation Day. And so that is what we're trying to return to. We're trying to both honor the legacies of what has happened before us, but also recognizing that there's still so much more work to be done, and that's what we're trying to accomplish with this.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Mutual aid, especially, is going to be a big thing. Actually, back in Chicago, I've been working on doing independent mutual aid projects with me and a few friends that are also dealing with housing insecurity. It's a big deal, and we as a queer community really need to stick out for each other. Now, I saw in international news not too long ago that in Toronto, Canada, they actually banned police from Pride successfully. Do you think something like that could be possible here or in other North American cities?
I hope so. I think that's definitely what we're pushing for. Because Heritage of Pride was not listening to the demands that we had, such as that, that's where we decided to create our own event and create that space that does not include those oppressive institutions. And so, as you noted, it is something that's becoming a thing where people are waking up and saying, wait, we need to think through why these are even here. I hope that's something that becomes more routine within the movement, and I'm hoping that we can eventually get Heritage of Pride to also do that. If not, we'll continue with our march and see what happens from there.
All right, so that was Nora interviewing an organizer out of New York about the history of Pride, Stonewall, and Rainbow Capitalism in general. So I wanted to follow up with another article that kind of talks about some of the nuts and bolts of this, and particularly the fair weather nature of these corporations that ostensibly say they support the LGBTQA community. Actions speak louder than words, and so do in fact political donations. This is from an article by Popular Information. The headline is, "These rainbow flag-waving corporations donated millions to anti-gay members of Congress." This is from a June 17th article. And the way this article frames it, and this is a really good way to frame it, by the way, is they reference the Human Rights Campaign, which is the most prominent organization dedicated to LGBTQ rights, produces a corporate equality index. In 2019, 572 companies earned a perfect score. HRC says these companies are the best places to work for LGBTQ equality. HRC touts these companies not only for strong internal policies for employees, but also for their public advocacy for LGBTQ rights. All of the companies that received a perfect score submitted a detailed survey to HRC, meaning they were actively seeking recognition as champions of LGBTQ equality. Now, I'm sure y'all can maybe predict the twist that's about to happen. So they cross-reference this with the 228 members of Congress that HRC identified as receiving the worst score, a 0, for their stance on LGBTQ issues. And that included anti-gay members of the Trump cabinet, such as Betsy DeVos and our vice president. So Popular Information, they cross-referenced that and identified 9 corporations that received a perfect score from the Human Rights Campaign, but donated $1 million or more in the last election cycle to politicians that received a 0 on the HRC congressional scorecard, i.e. the most 0 denoting the most homophobic, transphobic, anti-LGBTQ members of Congress. So some cognitive dissonance going on. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to let y'all know. Here are the brass tacks and the facts. AT&T donated $2,755,000 to 193 anti-gay politicians. That was from 2017 to 2018. Good example. Senator Marsha Blackburn, Republican from Tennessee, received $22,000 from AT&T. Blackburn is a vocal supporter of Trump's effort to roll back trans rights in the military, voted against LGBTQ inclusive hate crimes legislation, and opposed the Violence Against Women Act because it included protections for LGBTQ people and opposes marriage equality. UPS donated $2,366,122 to 159 anti-gay politicians. Their example, UPS donated $20,000 to Congresswoman Karen Handel, Republican from Georgia. Hold on just a second. I think my co-host might be here. Never mind, I must be hearing things. Sorry about that, everyone out there in radio land. But she's gone on to say things that same-sex couple is a situation where the parents are not married, as in being one man and one woman. It's not... she basically said it's not the best household for a child. Somehow traumatizing to have gay parents. Comcast donated $2,116,500 to 154 anti-gay politicians. Their example, $10,000 to Congresswoman Virginia Fox, one of the most notoriously anti-gay politicians in Congress. Fox famously opposed the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Act, which empowered the Department of Justice to prosecute hate crimes against LGBTQ people. Home Depot donated $1,825,500 to 111 anti-gay politicians. That includes $20,000 to Doug Collins from Georgia. This year, Collins opposed the Equality Act, which would expand the 1964 Civil Rights Act to ban discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. General Electric donated $1,380,500 to 97 anti-gay politicians, including $19,000 to Senator Robert Wicker, who was one of the original co-sponsors of the First Amendment Defense Act, a bill which sought to permit discrimination by individuals, many businesses, and non-profit organizations against same-sex couples, single parents, and unmarried couples. FedEx donated $1,261,500 to 75 anti-gay politicians. That included Senator James Inhofe, that guy from Oklahoma. I think he's come up on the show before. When the Supreme Court ruled in favor of marriage equality in 2015, Inhofe claimed that he knew a lot of people in the quote-unquote gay community, and they opposed the decision. I know a lot of people who are friends of mine in the gay community who also think it's a bad decision. He also introduced anti-LGBT an amendment which would endorse the idea that businesses and organizations should be allowed to use taxpayer funds to discriminate against married same-sex couples. UBS donated $1,094,750 to 72 anti-gay politicians, including $5,000 to Congressman Alex Mooney. As a state legislature later in Maryland, he led the fight against a proposal to prevent discrimination against gay men, lesbians, and bisexuals based on their sexual orientation. Verizon, who, man, is just another reason to loathe this company, gave $1,022,803 to 74 anti-gay politicians. That includes $6,000 to Congressman David Rouser. He was an outspoken supporter of HB 2, an anti-gay North Carolina law that excluded lesbian, gay, and transgender people from state anti-discrimination protection. Pfizer donated $959,263 to 52 anti-gay politicians. Pfizer, of course, that's a hometown corporation in the very progressive city of Kalamazoo. Pfizer donated Sorry. I already said that. And again, they make the bottom of the list, but again, a 100% rating from HR Human Rights Council, Human Rights. Sorry, I might be. Campaign. Sorry, Human Rights Campaign. While still giving almost $1 million to 52 anti-gay politicians. All y'all who work at Pfizer, maybe you should start asking your employer what the hell is up. And as we've seen over the last week, withholding labor for political purposes can be effective. We'll be talking about that later in the show. It's a very inspirational story about what worker solidarity can truly mean. And I want to close out with one last important local story on this, related to this topic. Up in Grand Rapids, there's some comrades that got by the GRPD in a unjustified manner. Socialist Alternative posted this on June 16th. They said Grand Rapids police halted the Pride March and arrested 2 queer women organizers despite the fact that they did nothing wrong and were following police orders. Another organizer was assaulted with a police bicycle. We finished the march and held our rally, but this injustice will not stand. And that was the Socialist Alternative, their particular protest march during GR Pride. In the picture is a giant banner that says gay liberation, not rainbow capitalism. And just so y'all know, there is currently a GoFundMe running, Kylie and Raina jail support. You can look that up. They're based out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, trying to raise about $10,000 to help cover bail and legal costs. They expect legal costs, attorney fees to be around $600,000 and are saving the rest for any fines levied by the court once the case is over. Again, if you're interested in that, you can find that on GoFundMe. It's Kylie and Raina jail support. As of now, they've raised about $3,765, but they could certainly use a little more, I'm sure. So, I think with that, let's go ahead and take a break. Y'all are listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. Keep your dial locked. We got more of that political revolution on the way.
You know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in Paris?
WIDR Kalamazoo.
This is a tasty burger.
Not be apparent, but hunger is a rather prominent issue amongst the student body of Western. The Invisible Need Project is a multifaceted initiative that's aimed to help struggling students. Every 2 weeks, generous people donate their food to the pantry located in the Fawn Student Service buildings or other drop-off locations. All you need to do is grab a reusable bag and grab whatever food you need to help sustain yourself. If anyone's unsure when their next meal will be, or if you have a little extra food you'd be willing to donate, the food pantry is your place. If you're looking to help donate, become a volunteer, or just learn more, call 269-387-4742 or email dosa-inp@wmich.edu for details.
Trademarks and Rhyme Bait.
Hello, all y'all out there. We are back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. So if you're just joining us, we just wrapped up some important stories about pride, and particularly rainbow capitalism. I hope everybody had a good Pride Month. But remember, always study your history, in particular Stonewall. And as we were just talking about, do not trust the rainbow capitalists. They are fair weather friends who will slap on a rainbow flag for a month while giving money to some of the most retrograde politicians in our system. So with that, let's go ahead and I think we're going to switch gears a little bit. So, as I said at the beginning of the show, I feel like we're always doom and gloom on this show. We're always highly critical of just about everything. That's kind of the part of it, though. If you're a leftist, particularly if you're a Marxist, you got to be on those dialectics, man. Even stuff that seems good, you got to dig underneath, analyze it, and critique it. And I'm sure I might have a little bit of criticism about this, but I do want to make sure I paint this in the right light. This is overall this is some good news. And I wanted to deliver it to all y'all over here on the radio. $15 million affordable housing complex in Kalamazoo gets state funding. Now, we've talked about stories like this on the show before, headlines here on M Live, etc. And typically, we've kind of made fun of them because the rental rates that they come up with do not have parity with what affordable actually means. Now, there is a reason for that. A lot of this new housing that's being put up that calls itself affordable uses the average at the county level. Now, the average income at the county level is significantly higher than the average income here in Kalamazoo, let alone the average low income or income in low income neighborhoods of working class people here in the city of Kalamazoo. This particular affordable housing complex actually earnestly earns that title of affordable, and we'll explain a little bit more about why. So let's go ahead and dig into this article here. This is written by Brad Devereaux, published on June 24th. So the Michigan State Housing Development Authority announced on June 18th that $1,118,500 was awarded to the developers Nichols Spitters LLC and Nomi 2 LLC for a development planned at 615 Harrison Circle. The proposed project calls for new construction of a 5-story building with 80 apartment units and a commercial space on the first floor. 4 of the units will be 2-bedroom units and 76 will be 1-bedroom units. There will be rental rates available at prices below market value for renters making 30% of area median income, as well as 40, 60, and 80% of AMI. So again, it's you have it functions in steps. So it isn't just pinning affordability to some average that may be higher than the actual area that it's in. It's actually pegging it to people who are legitimately making far under what that income is. So, what does that actually look like? The monthly rent of the units will range between $313 and $1,500. So, like a mixed income building, basically. The complex will have 16 one-bedroom units at 30% AMI with a monthly rent of $313. 11 one-bedroom units and 1 two-bedroom unit at 40% AMI with a monthly rent of $443 and $530, respectively. 15 one-bedroom units and 1 two-bedroom unit at 60% AMI with a monthly rent of $662 and $794, respectively. And 19 one-bedroom units and 1 two-bedroom units with a monthly rent of $959 and $1,150, respectively. And there will be 15 one-bedroom units and 1 two-bedroom unit at a market rate of $1,000 and $1,500, respectively. And the next part is important. The complex will offer some of its units only to people who make less than the income limits based on the area as median income. 2019 HUD, as in HUD, figures show a median family income of $73,900 for the Kalamazoo and Portage area. That means a family of 4 making less than $59,100 could qualify for an apartment being offered in the top tier level. And at the bottom tier, if a family had an income of less than $29,000 and $560,000, it would qualify for a 40% AMI unit, and the income limit for a 30% AMI unit is $22,170. Income limits change based on family size. For example, a single person making less than $15,540 a year could qualify for a 30% AMI unit. A single bedroom rented at $313 will have the same fixtures and amenities as a one bedroom rented at the market rate of $1,000, Durham said. The project will add much needed affordable housing to the up and coming area, and the city has been working to encourage development in the area for years. This is along Harrison Street. It's kind of nearby Louis Trophy House, if you know that part of town. So, and it goes on to say the city previously passed a tax break for the project, a 4% payment in lieu of taxes on all units. So, is this good news? Yes, it is. And it is positive because while, I have some complaints about scale in this case, it does seem to me that, when you break it down, 16 apartments is really not that much. Or even if you lump in, say, the 2 low-tier brackets, so 40% AMI and 30% AMI. So that's apartments ranging between $313 to $530 respectively, which, again, if you're even those people making fairly low income, that is somewhat affordable. My own rent hovers slightly below $313. Of course, I live in a house with several roommates. But still, that's a grand total of 27 new affordable apartments. Of course, a lot more than 27 people, 27 families, are in dire need of affordable housing. So while, again, I don't think I should poo-poo this too hard for what it is doing, we definitely, as a city, need to scale this up significantly. As I said, we've got hundreds of people who are desperately in need of affordable housing, free housing as well. So this model, this complex. It will help some people, but not very many. And we do need to keep that in mind, that this building is basically going to be a drop in the bucket. And let us talk again, at the top of this article, they highlighted that, it's a grant that they're awarding to these private developers, Nickel Spitters and Nomi 2. Now, again, I'm going to be going a little socialist with this, but state housing in actual socialist states is typically far more ambitious than that, and also they make room for people who don't need affordable housing, but just need housing, period. Housing as a human right. As you can see, there are no apartments being allocated for people who make no income. And again, please think about this. This is a really reasonable model for living. Again, it's not anything at approaching scale or parity with some of the social democratic Nordic countries that we talk about often, or the inherent right to housing that you find in places like Cuba. But here's the rub. Even to do this sort of sensible mixed income housing, and we're told that the free market solves all these problems, of course, right? They had to get a large grant from the state government. So again, it's kind of that peculiar libertarian idea that, if the government just completely got out of housing, it could solve housing problems. The free market, the invisible hand, whatever, would somehow fix housing for the poorest of the poor instead of... the invisible hand exists, and it's jacking off very rich real estate developers. I'm sorry, that might be a very spicy image on 6:45 p.m. radio, but that is indeed the case. So, excuse me. So that is the problem there, is that they still need a tremendous incentive to do this. Again, at the bottom, it talked about how, again, they also needed a tax incentive to actually build this up. City previously passed a tax break for the project, a 4% payment in lieu of taxes on all units. And again, that's on top of the already established property tax that gives large-scale developers and owners of large tracts of land tremendous tax breaks, which are then not legally are not passed down onto renters. So, in summary, it's good in theory and good in practice, but in the grand scheme of things, it's very insignificant. It's a good idea, and it's a good model in our current capitalist framework. And I do mean like the kind of hyper-capitalism we have in America, because even in like the Nordic countries you talk about, make no mistake, they are still capitalist, but they have more efficient and larger scale ways of meeting housing needs. I like this, but frankly, I'd like to see all of those apartments available for the 30% AMI rate. And I'd like to see ideally, I'd like to see all of those apartments available for free. But I think, an important part of that, though, and we will get into this, kind of the way that real estate capitalism works, and a kind of problem with demographics is what mixed income apartments and buildings do that kind of help assuage one of the problems of our current system, is that when you have mixed income housing, that means you're not grouping together all low income people in the same place. This kind of ties into a lot of issues when we talk about like gerrymandering and how A lot of politicians and political initiatives will try to group as many ideologically similar people into particular congressional districts as possible. Now, a lot of that is discussed with gerrymandering, but it's kind of a chicken and the egg situation. The way that we design and foster urban development does basically congregate large numbers of particularly like urban low-income people in very small areas, which can again damage their overall voting power and create disproportionate representation for upwardly mobile, wealthier people who are white. So there is a little bit more to that than just, making sure everybody has housing. It kind of helps sidestep some of these kind of democracy issues as well. And we shouldn't forget that is part of kind of the net positive of this kind of mixed income building. But I think we should always keep our eye on the prize as well and realize that we're nowhere near where we need to be, even with other capitalist states that have a more social democratic system that does not go by the horrible pull your bootstraps up, it's a hard knock life, Lewis Powell endorsed hyper-capitalism that we have here in the United States. So I think with that, let's go ahead and we're going to take a quick little break, and we come back, we talk a little bit about local history. I want to dig in. This weekend, the Douglas Community Association is having its 100-year anniversary, and I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about that because it is a very important, and it's been a very important institution in our community for quite a few decades. So we're going to be doing a little bit of local history here on the program in just a bit, but first we're going to go ahead and take a little break. Y'all listening to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo.
For those interested in
underground hip-hop,
here is a complete disc jockey show with all the modern pace of today's exciting radio.
Listen here on
Saturday night
from 7 to 10.
You can't go wrong.
There's one important element missing, however. That's you.
Hip-hop epic show.
Saturday night.
I mean, DJs bring me young, play that real live show. The hip-hop epic show.
I know you're gonna do it.
Yo, I'm talking about the hip-hop epic show. The DJs bring me young.
Transmitting live Saturday night.
WIDR Kalamazoo.
Bouncy.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Wider is. Wider is.
I ain't getting out of bed today. 9 to 5 to survive. There's gotta be a better way than waking up.
Wider is. Wider is.
Living lonely is a life I've been living.
is Radio Evolution.
Hello, everyone. We are back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. So, I'm going to make a liar out of myself. I think we're going to push the Douglas story real quick because there is a very important piece of history I forgot to talk about earlier when we were doing our Pride segments. And I just want to read, please read this full article because it is very interesting history. It's from pridesource.com, publishers of Michigan's Between the Lines. And it's basically about kind of the title of the article is Shockwaves from Stonewall, Revisiting Gay Liberation in Michigan. And I'm just going to read like an excerpt from it because it's actually a pretty long, in-depth article, but I really encourage all y'all to read it. So, the combustion of Stonewall was seemingly spontaneous, yet reflected a lot of pent-up rage. Many gay activists had already become emboldened by the 1969. More militant ideas and feelings were already percolating. Michiganders now understood that under the rubric LGBTQ, they felt galvanized to come out and take action. Some were motivated by ire at the straight structures of society, strictures. Some wished to be honest, some understood visibility as a key to asserting political and social change. The origins of gay liberation in Michigan can be traced to a personal ad. In October 1969, months after Stonewall and long before Grindr and other apps made meeting online a routine part of same-sex dating, factory worker named Wayne King placed an ad in an anti-establishment newspaper called The Fifth Estate. Gay Radical 27 wants to meet same 18 to 30, mask only, box 631A, Detroit. Within weeks, King changed the ad. Those interested in forming a gay liberation group write box 631A. Yeah, that's a... Yeah. For me, I don't know what comes first, the date or the radicalizing. If it's a good date, it's both. Anyway, an initial meeting was set for January 1970 at St. Joseph Episcopal Church. Within a couple of months, according to minutes Jim Toy took as meeting secretary, 50 people on average were coming to meetings. Attendees reflected the city multiracial, cross-cultural co-ed. Most were in their 20s. They initially called themselves the Detroit Gay Liberation Movement, but soon decided on the Detroit Gay Liberation Front. Gay liberation in Michigan gained its strongest foothold in three main centers of gravity: Detroit, Ann Arbor, and the Lansing area. Gay liberation fronts also formed in Battle Creek, Port Huron, and at Kalamazoo. Campuses in particular became hotbeds of gay activism. Besides University of Michigan and MSU, early campus organizing began in 1970 and 71 at Central Michigan University, Eastern Michigan, Grand Valley State, Wayne State, and right here at Western Michigan University. At the time, gay lib groups met with resistance from the highest levels of university administration. For example, in May 1970, when the Ann Arbor Gay Liberation Front sought to hold a Midwest conference at U of M, University President Robert Fleming denied use of school facilities. Student leader Jerry DeGrick, who had keys to the student activities building, snuck GLF in, and they held the conference anyway. That's a pretty cool story, thinking about it. Like, I've organized conferences before, and the idea of sneaking an entire conference in, that just seems pretty interesting. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and let my co-host in and maybe read a little bit more from this article. We'll be right back. We're back on, everybody. So I think I'm going to put a pin in that story, but again, very interesting article. Check it out. It's from pridesource.com. Title of the article, Shockwaves from Stonewall, Revisiting Gay Liberation in Michigan. Joined by co-host Lawrence.
Yo, what up?
Wild Lawrence has entered the building. Yes.
Yes, a Wild Lawrence has entered the building.
Yeah. So you were fired up when you came in here. I know you said you want to talk about some healthcare stuff.
There's a bunch of stories I want to talk about, man. But first, we have to give a shout out to the Douglas Community Center in Kalamazoo. Mm-hmm. We have to give a shout out to them. 100 year anniversary that they had. I'm gonna give a personal shout out to my mom because it was my mom's birthday last week, and I wasn't here on the show to do so online on air, so I'm doing that now.
Yep.
Man, there was a bunch of good and bad stories, especially when it comes to black candidates.
Did want to say one last thing. So with the Douglas, just so people have some historical context, they were one of the first community organizations in Kalamazoo that tried to basically like be a community resource for black Kalamazooians, Kalamazoo folks,
Calabamians.
I don't know what the shorthand for that is.
I don't know what our shorthand. It's sad. We've been living here all our lives, and we don't know the shorthand for the. No, I always call it the zoo.
The zoo.
I always call it the zoo.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, and again, like they helped black folks with opportunities. You know, KPS wasn't hiring black people until, but Douglas would bring people on. And again, they do a really good article about this in M Live, talking about the history of the Douglas Community Association. And for all y'all, they're having a 100th anniversary picnic/party this weekend. It starts at 12 p.m. The actual picnic part goes until 7, and then from 7 to 10 p.m. they'll be having a kind of a live music, food trucks for the grown-ups.
Yes, you should go. You should go and support your local black organizations and businesses and people. I mean, there's tons of businesses and other things that happen at the Douglas outside of the Boys and Girls Club partnering with the Douglas. They have mental health services up there. I think Mothers of Hope operated out of there. I mean, there's I know the Roots Dance Company used to operate out of there. There's a lot of things and a lot of opportunities that happen with the Douglas, and this Douglas still provides an amazing service for our community. I mean, you go. Let's celebrate the fact that we have an institution here that has been helping out us, our people, for a century. For a century, folks. Let's go. Let's get out your house. It's warm outside. Go celebrate.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
it's a celebration.
Yeah. Okay, so with that little bit of positivity, celebrating our community. Now we gotta get some indignation in there. Is that right?
No. There's a little bit more celebration. There's some things to celebrate. I know that the debates is tonight and tomorrow.
Oh, that's right.
It's tonight and tomorrow. We also have to talk about, and this is the thing that I want to talk about before anything else. If you are a pot smoker, if you like marijuana, or even if you don't like marijuana, you just like the idea of freedom. Illinois has become the 11th state in our union to legalize marijuana.
Yep.
To legalize and decriminalize.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it last week, but now it's official.
It's official.
Put a ring on it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they're going to be rolling back and communing people who's been nonviolent drug offenders in the state. Mm-hmm. They are going to be reallocating funds that they make from the marijuana growing taxes and all that to disenfranchised communities that's been affected by the war on drugs. It's just it's the story that, as a progressive and just a person who say they care about the economy, economics, and just freedom, it's just a good story to wake up to.
I will say, and I don't like saying this as a Michigander, but I think their legalization rollout is a bit superior to ours, which It's basically a lot of our marijuana legalization was the architecture was created by a lot of those libertarian-esque Republicans. So their priority wasn't like, justice for like, incarcerated people. It was all about like, how can we help corporations make a large amount of money off of this green plants? So that's
basically what it is, man. And the fact that they got it passed through legislation. It wasn't a ballot. It wasn't a ballot initiative. They actually had representatives in the state.
A state legislature with some sense, people. Oh my gosh.
And that's the thing. That's the thing about the story that gave me so much hope. I was like, oh man, we actually have state representatives that actually represent their people.
Wow.
Like, wow. That's
maybe we can get some of that after we fix this gerrymandering crap here in the state, which eventually is going to happen.
Man. Okay. So, it was that. There was some other news I also want to talk about. I, personally, before we dive into any of the vitriolic stories, the nasty stories that I wanted to get to, how do you feel about these two debates coming up?
Oh man, so you know what?
I just want to touch on this for like 5-10 minutes.
All right. Me on a personal level, I've got like a wacky Marxist lecture to get ready for on Friday, so I'm probably gonna be watching them this weekend on YouTube. So, but tonight's the one with Bernard versus Uncle Joe.
No, that's not tonight. That's not tonight. That's tomorrow night.
Oh, okay.
Let me grab the list for you.
All right.
Hold on a second. This Royal Rumble of this Royal Rumble.
Yeah. Yeah, who's your main? Are people doing brackets on this thing?
I actually have been. I'm not gonna put all my business out here, but I have been doing bets. There have been some bets on that I've made with people. Who's going to be the blandest? Who's not gonna say anything interesting? Yeah. We have
I'm gonna guess it's one of the white guys running whose last name sounds like a Willy Wonka product. Okay, Blickety Blicken Blooper.
Right. So I have so this is my breakdown. So this is the bets.
All right.
Who's going to drop first after these debates?
Yeah.
Who's going to so it's who's going to drop first? Who's going to be the surprising outstanding candidate? Who's going to be the most vicious, and who's going to stand out the most?
Yeah.
For me, it's not as me personally. I think someone like Andrew Yang or Christian Gillibrand or even someone like Bill de Blasio, because Bill de Blasio's in the first debate. In the first debate, the only two standout candidates from the first debate, or the only three of them that's a standout, is Elizabeth Warren, Tulsi Gabbard, Cory Booker, I think not Mayor Pete, but Beto O'Rourke, and Bill de Blasio. Those are the 5 standouts.
Yeah.
And out of those 5, you have Warren and Tulsi.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think it is interesting how, especially, we'll talk, I guess, more like when the second night, but, you have Warren, who is, any other demerits, she's been, like, the most wonkish, and I use wonk as a compliment on policy. I think there are a lot of people I've been seeing that are, like, really impressed by she's got plans and plans and plans.
Oh, yeah.
And then Tulsi, who is really the lone person running who is like genuinely on the left when it comes to foreign policy. And that is kind of nebulous. To the left of anybody else in our political system, I'd say. There is nobody in our government with an actual leftist foreign policy, but
except Mike Gravel, who's not on stage.
Except Mike Gravel, who's not on stage, yeah.
Wait. Okay, so first night. This is the first night lineup. You have Cory Booker, Julio Castro, Bill de Blasio, John Delaney, Tulsi Gabbard, Jay Inslee, Amy Klobuchar, Beto O'Rourke, Tim Ryan, and Elizabeth Warren. Now, boy, that's boring. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, we're political junkies. I live for this type of stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, bruh, this debate. Like, for me, I want to see Tulsi. If I was advising Tulsi, I would say, turn that progressive dial to 11 and get aggressive.
Yeah.
Get aggressive.
It's really too bad she's not on the same stage as Biden, because I imagine she could probably, she'd probably dig into him a little bit.
Oh, man. If Warren, I want to see Warren on stage. I want to see Warren, Andrew Yang, Marianne Williamson, and Biden all on the same stage with Bernie. I wanted those five in particular on stage with each other, and maybe Kamala Harris. The reason why is because universal basic income, reparations, equality when it comes to civil rights and things of that nature, the Voting Rights Act and things of that nature, people's history on those things, and criminal justice reform. All of those things, I wanted them to speak on. But I wanted to hear, in particular, someone like Uncle Joe, who celebrated working with segregationists to pass busing segregation, and celebrating that.
Oh man!
On the same stage, I wanted to see them on the same stage with a person who marched with Dr. Martin Luther King. And also, okay, so that first debate, in my opinion, this is who I have my bets on. The standouts from this debate is going to be Tulsi, Bill de Blasio, and Warren. Those are going to be the standouts in my opinion. Beto's gonna annoy me because he's gonna do a lot of cliches, and like he's gonna do a lot of political talk. Same thing with Julio Castro and Cory Booker. Julio has shown that he is willing to play dirty and throw shade and do hack straw man arguments for his own political purposes. So watch out for him to play dirty, especially going after Bernie. I have a strong feeling that a lot of these other people are going to go after Bernie. I hope that Warren and Tulsi does not, because I don't think progressives should be fighting each other since the establishment is outnumbering us.
I think Warren, it was either like a tweet or something. She's like, we got to really make sure none of us should attack each other at all. That encompasses everybody, including like Biden and stuff.
Here's the problem. Here's the problem with that statement. They've already attacked Bernie, and they're still attacking Bernie now.
Well, I mean, that's what it usually means. It's like, let's not attack each other, except Bernie Sanders.
Right.
Everybody attack him.
Yeah, except the progressive. And that goes to the story that I wanted to talk about last week that we didn't get to, is that Third Way is now backing Warren. And that's a whole conversation that I wanted to get to. I wanted to get to last week, and we talked about in our group chat. But
can you explain what Third Way is for some of the listeners out there who do not have PTSD from the awful 2016 primaries?
Okay, Third Way, for those that do not know what Third Way is they are the arch nemesis of progressives. So the PCCC, Justice Democrats, Our Revolution, they are actual progressives who want to systematically change the system. These are people who back Warren, AOC, Bernie. These are people who support actual progressives. New Democrats and Third Way, they are they support people like Joe Manchin. They support people like Hillary Clinton. They support people like Nancy Pelosi. Like they are corporatist, neoliberal, centrist Democrats. Democrats in name only. I call them dinos. That wants nothing more than to keep the status quo as it is, because that's how they make money. And the only reason that they're supporting Warren now is because Warren's been surging. If you look at any of the recent polling, Warren's been surging.
Deservedly, I'd say.
Yeah. Except the fact that she doesn't really support Medicare for all, which is a whole nother conversation. But
I'll just say, like, I'm glad somebody's surging because they have concise policy. And proposals.
Warren's been surging because she's been putting in work, and you cannot deny that her slogan, "I got a plan for that," and she literally does, except for Medicare for all. Which is a whole nother conversation. Again, we'll get to that later. But they are backing her, even though in 2014, 13, and 14, they said that her economic populism will destroy the Democratic Party. But they wrote multiple articles and hit pieces on Warren. They support her now because they've literally come out and said anybody but Bernie. And Bernie has consistently stayed in the top two. And also, it also goes to the weakness of the frontrunner, who is Joe Biden, who's literally been tanking every time he opens his mouth. Every single time he opens his mouth, he's been tanking. And it only shows that they're only doing this because they're afraid that they're doing it for two reasons. This is my opinion. Bernie's unmovable. He's been talking about the same issues since the 60s of what he wants this country to be. Warren is movable. Back in the 60s, she used to be a Republican.
Yep, very true. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Warren is movable because when you see her talk about Medicare for all or other issues, she has shown that she's open to being persuaded by those that do not care about progressive values. I'm not saying that she will do such thing, because I support Warren. Warren is actually my number 2 if Bernie doesn't win. But at the same time, there's a reason why centrist Democrats and centrist think tanks and lobbyist groups like Third Way are backing her. And we have to acknowledge that. And that's also why we need to make sure that we keep putting pressure on these candidates to not only fight for the right policy, but to then act upon it.
Yeah, it's true. And, I think a lot of people made that argument back in 2016 that Hillary Clinton was somebody who could be pushed on policy. And, the thing is, my rebuttal to that is like, well, where's the grassroots movement going to come from? Yeah, Elizabeth is somebody who's a little bit, it seems like, more pushable, but that's for good and ill. Like, a lot of critiques I've seen about that is just like concerns that when push comes to shove, is she going to stand by progressive policy, or is she going to be kind of like an Obama figure who will be more comfortable kind of appeasing the centrists? Now, I do say she's got
on certain
principles
policy, yes.
on especially like Wall Street and consumer protections.
Oh, yeah.
She's got some bedrock principles there, but if you think she's going to be equally progressive on things like like Medicare for all or foreign policy, then I have a what is it, a fridge to sell you or something.
No, I have some land on the dark side of the moon. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's
exactly.
But that's the thing. I trust Warren more than some of the other candidates. This is why Warren's personally, she's in my top 5 and she's in my top 3. It changes from time to time. But that's the first night. I think Tulsi's going to come out on fire. This is the first night. I think Tulsi's going to come out on fire. I think Julio's going to throw some shade. I think Corey's going to try to be Obama 2.0, just not as charismatic. And Bill de Blasio might come out swinging because he likes to play progressive as well. So the first night's going to be interesting. I don't think anybody else is really going to stand out from that first night. Now, the second night, that second night is where that second night. Yeah. That second night, that's where things is gonna get nasty. Michael Bennett, Joe Biden, Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg. I cannot unsee it. I've been trying to work on it. Every time I see
Buttigieg needs to stay his butt in South Bend and deal with that police racism and brutality thing. I mean, that's a whole other subject.
That's a whole, and that's another thing that we were supposed to talk about too, that we are going to get to after this. But yeah, I cannot. I've been trying to work on it and be nice because my friend gets mad at me because I say Buttigieg, but I'm like, dog, it is what it is.
Booty juice?
No, I don't say that. That's nasty. But that, no, his name is Boot Edge, and I'm just like Buttigieg. Like, yeah, okay, anyway. But yeah, you got Michael Bennett, Joe Biden, you got Mayor Pete, you got Kristen Gillibrand, you got Kamala Harris, John Hickenlooper, Bernie Sanders, Eric Shotwell, Marianne Williamson, Andrew Yang. Now, second night, Bernie's gonna do Bernie. So
playing the greatest hits.
Bernie's gonna do Bernie. Yeah. So there's nothing that's gonna be surprising about that. Bernie might go after Joe Biden because if Joe Biden gets some questions about civil rights or things that he's done.
I've been involved with civil rights all my life. Some bull.
Or when he talks about things that he's done that's bipartisan with Republicans, it's like, yeah, your bipartisan measures helped us get into the Iraq War. Or you were for separating children in buses, like busing segregation. Like, your policies on helping Republicans didn't help us. You shouldn't even be running. But people who should be standing out, I think Kamala's going to do well. Joe is a good debater, so I think he's going to do fine. I think the standouts in that one for me is Andrew Yang and Marianne Williamson. I think they're going to be they could be sleepers, and I think Kristen Gillibrand can also bring out some of that fire in this discussion, because she was one of the first people to come out and say that she's not going to take corporate PAC money or super PAC money. So it's one of those things where in her earlier career, she wasn't a super progressive. She wasn't really she wasn't super progressive because she was in a more conservative part of New York. But when she became a senator, she started flexing those progressive muscles. So Christian might come out swinging. But yeah, those are the only ones that I can see doing anything. Michael Bennett's not going to do anything. Mayor Pete has literally said he's not about policy, he's about ideas and values. Like, what does that mean? You're on stage with people who's been pumping out policy for like the last 6 months to a year. What does that mean? Like, I can't. No, I got you. I got you. No, but like, it doesn't make sense to me that you have on the second night there's going to be a lot of sparks flying. And the thing that doesn't make sense to me is that they could not put some of these people who's been in the top 5 consistently on the first night. I would have loved to see Kamala Harris or Andrew Yang or even Joe Biden on the first night, or even Mayor Pete on the first night. That would have made both nights much more it would have made the scales on both nights to have some heavy hitters on both sides who can actually talk directly about policy. You have, like, the first night's going to be full of cliches and political talk, and I feel like a good majority of the second night will be that as well, with the exception of Yang, Bernie, and Marianne. That's it. It is going to be interesting to see on the second night who really stands out, because I don't know. I really don't. And while my friend Andy is out getting our other guests, I do want to speak about the one thing that he was speaking on earlier, and that's about Mayor Pete. Mayor Pete has had a number of different scandals when it comes to racism in South Bend. There have been multiple stories done by independent journalists. If you are multiple stories that talks about a hanging that happened in South Bend that happened to a black kid that was covered up within a day. The black woman asked Mayor Pete at a town hall, was they going to look into it? He said he would. They never did. Mayor Pete demoting a black police officer because there were police officers saying and doing racist things in South Bend. And when the person from Internal Affairs that was supposed to look into the racial discrimination that was going on, Mayor Pete fired them, and then he handpicked somebody to be the police chief in South Bend, who then had their own incident of not backing up a black police officer during the line of duty when the black police officer called for backup and needed help. And all of these stories more and more of these stories are coming out about South Bend, and about how the state police had to get involved and investigate South Bend, how a lot of these racist police officers not only were known to say and do and discriminate while they're active duty, but the police officer that just shot and killed the young black man, they knew beforehand that he has said and done racist things. Yet Mayor Pete still chose to back and stand behind the police officers. Because I get it. In a small city, and you're a brand new mayor, it's easy for you to fall in line with the police unions and other unions because you want them to like you, because in small cities, unions are big contributors to your campaign. But when you cover up for them when they're doing horrible racist things, then you're not protecting your citizens. You are complicit in the racism that's going on, because you're choosing to stand with the powerful instead of those that are disenfranchised. And your job as mayor is to make sure that your citizens are being protected. He has shown throughout the years that he does not do that. Even though he's a part of the LGBT community, even though that he can speak multiple languages and all those wonderful fun things, he has shown that he is not willing to fight for his own constituents when they are, especially the black constituents, when they need him to. And it also doesn't help the fact that Mayor Pete has literally said on multiple occasions that he's not big on policy. He cares about his hopes. He cares about hope and values and morality, and he wants to, and that's what he's bringing to the campaign. It bothers me because I'm like, as smart as you are, how do you not realize that platitudes and cliches just like that is what hurt Hillary Clinton in the last campaign? And you're going up against people like Warren and Sanders and others who have been putting out nothing but policy, detailed policy, like it or not like it. They've been about that work, and you're not doing it. So you're only hurting your cause. And I really think Mayor Pete is really hurting his cause, not just on him, defending the racist behavior of the police officers in his city, but also just blatantly and utterly not being as advertised when it comes to these type of issues. So if I can't depend on you to fight for our people when you're the mayor, then why would I want to vote for you in any way, shape, or form? That doesn't make sense.
No. Yes.
So yeah, man. But that's my 2 cents on it. I know we got a bunch of other stories that we need to talk about, but it is 7. It's up at 7:23. We have Andy. We gotta go to break.
We gotta go to break. All right. Well, when we come back, we're actually gonna dive into some local stories we got here. We got Nelly in the studio to talk about the driver's license, push for driver's licenses for undocumented folks here in town, as well as probably some other issues. So we will be right back. Keep your dial locked to the Hoodrat Strategist radio program, your only source for political revolution.
WIDR Kalamazoo, your only source for radio evolution.
Voting is important. From deciding Kalamazoo's best drunk food to picking the fan favorite for Wider's Battle of the Bands, voting allows people to voice their opinions and change their world. To vote for offices such as mayors, senators, and the president takes a little more than a link to a Google Forms survey. Before you vote, you have to register. This can be done in person, by mail, and in many states, online. For more information, you can point your favorite web browser to vote.gov.
Hello, everyone. We are back. This is the Hoodrat Strategist radio program. So just a super quick hit before we move on to our segment with Ms. Nelly Fuentes. But I did want to mention this just dropped today. There's going to be a tuition increase at Western Michigan University for the next school year. Yeah, boo, boo. And
we had a boo track. If we had the thing where you could have audible boos.
I need to get a soundboard, man.
Yep, we had a soundboard.
Yeah.
Boo. Yeah, all you were was like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah. It's going to be about a $534 increase. And without going too deep into the rabbit hole, I just did want to point out, again, this is not new, and Western Michigan University certainly is not alone in this. So just to make it real sharp, this is the result of decades of disinvestment from our public education system that has shifted the burden onto students.
Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but since the GI Bill, hasn't tuition gone up over 1,000% in America?
Yes, it has. Actually, I have some numbers here. 1971, and this is adjusted for inflation. The average yearly cost for a four-year public college was $8,734
for the year.
For no, for the I believe that's for the 4 years actually. Yeah, and yeah, the whereas now, and this is as of 2016, that cost is $20,967. So, well, when it's like when your parents talk about like working at a Dairy Queen over the summer and going to college with that money, keep in mind that was a very, very different playing field.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah. All right.
No, I see what you're saying. That's a year. Mm-hmm. Half the country doesn't make $30,000 a year. Yet, if I wanted to go to school and I had a full-time job that paid $12 an hour, I still wouldn't be able to afford. And that was back in 2000. That was back in 2016.
Yeah.
But Western has now increased their tuition again.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. And again, it's a larger problem. You know, used to have much more investment in school in our university system than we do today. But I want to transition from that. We've got a very special guest on the show. This is, I'm of course going to let you introduce yourself, but you're coming here to talk to us today about a very important campaign that Movimiento Cosecha Kalamazoo is working on. So please introduce yourself, if you will, and why don't we just go ahead and dive right in. What is this whole thing with driver's licenses, and what are y'all doing at the City Commission?
Yeah, thank you so much, Andy, for the invitation. I feel very honored to be invited into this space. I greatly appreciate it. Just to be here, I thank you very much. My name is Nelly Fuentes, and I am with Movimiento Cosecha Kalamazoo and Movimiento Cosecha Michigan. We are a nonviolent movement that seeks permanent protection, dignity, and respect for all 11 million undocumented immigrants in the country. We don't make distinction between DACA recipients or TPS. We're very aware that it's a fight for all of us. I need to say that this movement is led by undocumented folks. So it's a great way to plug in for folks who are looking to plug in with movements that are doing the work. So to answer your question, Andy, Movimiento Cosecha Michigan is we have launched a campaign for driver's licenses for all. So let me just give you a little bit of the background. Undocumented immigrants were able to drive with a driver's license. We were issued driver's licenses up until 2008. In 2008, the Attorney General, started stirring the pot, deciding that we shouldn't have driver's licenses, and then the state legislation followed, and the state of Michigan, passed legislation to cut driver's licenses for undocumented folks. Now, I need to make sure to be clear that this does not mean that folks are not driving on the roads. This means that there's a lot more folks driving on the road without insurance and without driver's license. And that, if we think about like the larger spectrum of it, it is affecting us all. It's not just undocumented folks. It is definitely affecting everyone else. Particularly for my community, what I can say is that folks, when we drop off our children to school, when we go grocery shopping, when we do all these different things, the fear is always there, right? There is not one time that we don't feel fear getting ourselves behind the wheel and just driving to everyday things or things that are super important. For instance, I'm thinking of the example of this this woman. I will definitely keep her name. I will not divulge her name, but she one of her children is very ill, and her child is at the University of Michigan, and she resides in Kalamazoo, and she has to go back and forth from Kalamazoo to Ann Arbor to see her child, and this is all without a driver's license. So, like, on top of the trauma of having your child in the hospital, with an awful diagnosis, you have to come back to your hometown to work and pay for the bills for that hospital. And on top of that, go over there every so often to visit your child without a driver's license. So I don't think that I can properly put words into what it means driving without a driver's license and the fear and the terror that comes with it. I really want to make sure to say also that driving without a driver's license, or the lack of driver's licenses, is the number one ingredients to losing folks in the whole state. So, I've seen a lot of a lot of hell being raised about things that are happening at the border, all the atrocities in the concentration camps that are going on over there, and folks want to know like what to do. There is something locally that they can plug in and that they can do in order to help all this atrocity. Because honestly, the most people that we lose in our community is because of a driver's license. And I don't necessarily mean just in Kalamazoo, but like in the greater Kalamazoo area and across the state and across the country, really. That's the main issue, and that's why Movimiento Cosecha Michigan embarked in this driver's license campaign. So as part of the campaign, what we want to do is we want our city, our Kalamazoo city, and our county, Kalamazoo County, to support this endeavor, to support this campaign, this driver's license campaign. So on Monday, we're going to go to the city commission, and we're going to ask the city commission to pass a resolution in support of this driver's license campaign. Now, the beautiful part of this is that usually when this sort of thing happens is because there has been some political involvement. Like you contact your politician, you ask for something, and then the politician gets to work, right, and writes the resolution and then presents it and whatnot. This is not what Monday is. What Monday is a true is the true work of undocumented folks, right? Like, I feel that my community doesn't necessarily have access to politicians in Kalamazoo City or Kalamazoo County. So we took the task of writing our own resolution. The resolution that we will be presenting, it is 100% undocumented voices, and the resolution will be presented, and we will ask for the city to put it on the agenda for the next city commission, and then to vote on it. I truly believe that this is the way that our city and every form of government should work. The people come, the people ask, and then the government does. And so, that is I'm really excited about it. We will be at the City Commission building on Monday at 7 p.m. Just presenting the resolution. Another thing that I need to mention is that we're asking the city of Kalamazoo not only to pass this resolution that undocumented immigrants have written, but also to pass the very first bilingual resolution. This resolution has been written in Spanish, and then it has been translated into English for those unfortunates who do not have the privilege to speak Spanish. We will read the resolution in Spanish, then we'll read it in English, and we will ask that the very first bilingual resolution will be passed at the city.
Well, I was actually thinking of follow-up questions that you went through, but like that is so comprehensive with everything. I'm left at a loss. But I know, Lawrence, did you have something that you wanted to inquire about?
No, I absolutely support it. I mean, it's for those that may listen to this later and may have some issues with this. Let me also remind you that people who are undocumented are safer than your average Americans when it comes to driving and when it comes to crime and those type of statistics.
For sure.
Statistically, and I was trying to look up and trying to think of one of the recent statistics that was just on it that I read. Undocumented immigrants are 4 times more likely to be are 4 times less likely to do a crime, mostly because they don't want to be
correct.
They don't want
found out.
Yeah. But at the same time, if you're giving people driver's licenses and you're giving them you're letting and giving that circle of liberty to people who are not citizens, quote unquote, and you're extending that hand of you do belong, we want you to be here. Also, that also means that you have a way to it's less stressful for those who are undocumented that doesn't have licenses to get around. I mean, I think it's not only really comprehensive, I think it's kind of ingenious, because you're taking away multiple problems, even though the major problem is the fact that there's no reform on getting people to become legal citizens, and we don't have a comprehensive way of doing that. But this is a good way of moving towards it.
Absolutely.
And I think it's dope. I think it's really ingenious.
Thank you.
I would ask Nelly. So I'm gonna get this is kind of a 2-part question. So I don't know if you have expectations about it passing or not on Monday. My guess would be they are not quite foolish enough to say no. But I do want to just kind of pick your brain about so even the commission passing it, what challenges would remain locally, before we get this statewide passed. I'm thinking of just kind of the will this kind of help keep undocumented people in the community here safe? And also, what further challenges do you see trying to push this at the state level? We did have a turnover to Whitmer and all that, but we do still have a very reactionary state government. So
the only question I have is there a language in the legislation that says that ICE is not allowed to look at people's licenses to see if they're undocumented or not? Like that's what I would like to know. Is there a way? What protections are in this resolution that y'all have, so that, because we know that ICE will do that and they have been known to do things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you so much for the questions. I'd like to tackle Lauren's question first. The resolution that we're presenting to the city, it'll basically just be a statement from the city saying, yes, we support driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants. You need to get to work on it ASAP, right? It's not. It really doesn't necessarily affect the outcome directly. The thought behind it is, it puts pressure onto the legislation in Michigan. So if it is not only going to come from Kalamazoo and Kalamazoo County, but also from Grand Rapids and hopefully Kent County, Ann Arbor, Detroit. So where we have different cosecha circles. So it's not just one lone county, doing this statement in support import of driver's licenses, but it's various counties do it. And look, so not only counties, but municipalities, cities doing this statement as well. As far as the contingencies for ICE, so our friends at MERC, at Michigan Immigrants' Rights Center, they're the ones who are drafting language for the bill. They are drafting the language, as right now, and they are they're checking with other lawyers and legal folks around the country, just to make sure that the language of the bill does provide those safety nets, so ICE does not or is not able to get in that space. Mind you, I have to be honest and I have to be real. ICE is a federal agency, and getting any sort of documentation that comes from the government always comes with a risk, right? Mm-hmm. And I mean that for undocumented folks. I mean that, for the Black community. I mean that for the trans community. I mean that for like all the marginalized communities. Just getting any sort of piece of the government with your name and your address, like you're in the system. So it always comes with a risk. Driver's licenses will come with a risk, just as county IDs, right? Well, but it is a risk that I myself I'm willing to take, and I feel like each individual has its own agency, or their own agency to allow themselves to get or not get a driver's license, right? What is better, to drive without a driver's license, or to have a driver's license and have the government to have my address and all my information. So it's definitely an individual choice, but that doesn't mean that the government should not do this for undocumented folks. And I think that's my biggest thing, right? Like, what Movimiento Cosecha Kalamazoo fights for is just the treatment of undocumented folks, just like any other folk, right? Not privileges that are not provided to other peoples in the county, in the city, and in the states. So that's thank you for that question. I appreciate that. As far as Andy's question about I'm sorry, that was like 3 questions ago.
I think it
was about getting it through the rest of the state.
Yes,
thank you. Yes. So what is the likelihood to get it through the state? What are our chances? And so, I wish I could tell you. I wish I could tell you I knew. But the legislation is the legislation, right? One thing I can tell you is that undocumented immigrants in the state of Michigan are waking up to their power, and I don't mean that in like a violent way. I mean that like the labor and the economic power that we hold in the state of Michigan is absolutely enormous. We are the second largest state to have migrant workers, or to have agricultural workers. So my question is, what would happen if each undocumented person in the state actually takes power of that labor and takes their labor and consumer power collectively and say, you know what? We're not going to do this. We're not going to buy this. We're not going to go to work. We're not going to milk your cows. We're not going to pick your blueberries. There's not going to be South Haven Blueberry Festival because there isn't any blueberries, because we're the ones who pick it, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, exactly, at that point, may I ask, is the legislation going to take notice? Mm-hmm. Of course they will. Why? Because farmers will be bitching, because they will get calls from the Chamber of Commerce. et cetera, saying my cows are dead, my crops are rotten, there's no flowers for next year, and you know how people like their flowers. So we're coming into that power. We're coming and owning the power that we hold, the power that it is becoming very real to us. The realization that it is on our backs. It is literally on our backs that this state is surviving. It is on our backs that the agricultural system in the country is placed on. And particularly in Kalamazoo, let me ask you, just in Kalamazoo, what would happen if every single undocumented immigrant from all those the greenhouses says, nope, I'm not gonna go to work. I'm not gonna go to work for 7 days. I'm not gonna buy your flowers for 7 days. Can you imagine what would happen to the economy of Kalamazoo?
The apple orchard that's on 4th Street. Yeah. The apple orchard is on.
I mean, I think we've seen time and time again, like worker power, labor power trumps all. No pun intended, or invocation, I guess. It's actually, I was curious if you had any thoughts on, I don't know if you're familiar with the Wayfair walkouts. They've been, but yeah, it's kind of in a similar threat. If y'all don't know, a bunch of Wayfair employees threatened their CEO that they were going to walk out if they kept selling beds to ICE and their concentration camps.
I think they did.
They walked out. Yeah,
they did walk out. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a threat. It was you're going to stop supporting concentration camps.
Yep.
Okay. Actually, as of today, it started in Boston. It spread to Maine, so it's apparently spreading all over the country wherever these Wayfair locations are. So.
Dog, if I'm the CEO of Wayfair, when my employees would have said that, not only are we donating the money to the I think they wanted to donate them to undocumented groups that help undocumented people, and also just in children support groups, because a lot of these children have not been getting soap and water and toothpaste and stuff like that, and 6 kids have died so far. I know 28 has died in ICE custody, and then they stopped counting how many people died.
Correct.
After that, because they were so ashamed that so many people were dying in their custody. So like, if I was Wayfair, I'd be like, supporting concentration camps. Yeah, we have a history of that in this country. We ain't gonna be a part of it. We don't want to do that. Nope. Nope.
And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful example of people actually taking their own power and owning it, and knowing exactly how to utilize it in order to get something done. And that is something that white supremacy that it tells undocumented immigrants, you're not welcome here. You're third, fourth, fifth, the class, not even a citizen. You're closer to an animal. We have been called, right, animals by the man sitting on the presidential chair, and to know like these little bits in history where people say, nope, this is not okay, I will not do this anymore, and to see like the powers or the people who think, hey, there's no way I can do this without actually I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. We have a magic button for that.
Thank you. I'm just talking from the heart. I don't even see it coming anymore.
Well, I mean, we live in a different age now. Because back then, I wouldn't even say back then. There was a stronger notion years ago that we're just gonna go along to get along because most people are just trying to survive. Mm-hmm. And the willingness to organize and take those lumps to struggle to get what is needed, it's always been in our country to do so, and we've seen it from other marginalized communities, especially the black community and others. The thing is that organizing, making sure that we have a consensus. Not that we are, not that we're, that people are, that we have a community that has an idea of things that we want, not conformity. There's a difference. And I think that that's the thing that we have now, is that more people are like, oh yeah, we're going to buy your products. I don't have to buy yours since we're in this capitalist system. I will buy something else. I will spend money somewhere else. And we've seen boycotts, divestments, and sanctions. That's why they work. That's why they work.
So we're pushing 8 o'clock, but I wanted to kind of wrap up by asking you, Nelly. So again, like you mentioned earlier in the program, there's been a lot of outrage. You know, a lot of my friends have been talking about this more. They're angry. They want to get involved. They want to do something to help. I know we've talked too about how this isn't necessarily a new problem, but for people who are now aware and are have some righteous indignation, how would you suggest that they plug in? How can they get involved in defending their undocumented neighbors and friends?
Yes, thank you so much for that question, Andy. So there are two things that I will ask if you want to get involved. Number one, please be there on Monday. Be there on Monday at 7 p.m. At the outside City Hall. We will all be there. We will present our resolution, and we will ask them to put it on the agenda to be voted. Please come, be there, support the resolution that has been written by undocumented folks. And number two, there is a training on rapid response that is coming up on Saturday. This training will be in Grand Rapids. I don't have the address with me, and I apologize for that. But
I believe I actually have it on hand. It is going to be over at the Plymouth United Church of Christ over in Grand Rapids, and that is at excuse me, I'm waiting for it to load up here. That is going to be at 4010 Kalamazoo Avenue Southeast.
Thank you very much, Andy. Yes, those are the two main things that I would ask the community to support. It is very, very, I cannot stress enough how important it is for folks to start training for rapid response, to have our Kalamazoo ready for any raids that the man in the presidential chair starts sending our way. So.
Okay. Well, thank you again so much, Nelly, for coming on the program. And again, important dates, Saturday and Monday. Saturday in GR is the rapid response training, and Monday right here in Kalamazoo. City Commission meeting 7 o'clock. Fighting for driver's licenses. Before we close down the show, real quick with the activist calendar, on Friday from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. over at the Petco out in Portage on Westnedge. That's 6280 South Westnedge. There is an animal rights protest being organized by Kalamazoo Animal Liberation League about betta fish. They're confined to tiny little plastic bags, scarcely a few inches of water inside, stacked up on top of each other. If you want to find out more about that, look it up on Facebook. It's Portage, Michigan Protest Petco is the name of the event. Also on Friday, the Kalamazoo Socialist Party is organizing a teach-in, the housing crisis under capitalism. That's going to be over at the Vine Neighborhood Association from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. And then also going on this weekend, as we mentioned earlier in the program, the Douglas Community Association is having their 100th anniversary summer picnic. That starts at noon, goes till 10 p.m. And then on Sunday, June 30th at 1 p.m., Outfront Kalamazoo is hosting a community organizing class that you can head on down to. So that's going to be it for our show tonight. Until next week, please just follow us on Facebook and YouTube to stay up to date with our episodes. We post all of them online after the fact. Until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.